the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting to order at this time. And the first item that we have is the social emotional curriculum for K-8. And Katie Eichmann and Lynette are going to give us some information on that.
Just one correction, it's actually for K through grade 5
K through
for
grade
now. Just to clarify. And also just because we've got some new members of the board, our previous literacy curriculum, Success for All, had a component in it called Getting Along Together, which was a built-in social emotional learning component built into that curriculum. So as reported out in a previous board meeting, we're seeing some positive behavioral data as a result of the implementation of that social emotional learning piece in our elementary buildings. So knowing that we're moving to a new literacy curriculum, this is really a piece that will be able to fill those gaps and continue our district-wide work to more positively approach our challenging student behaviors in a very consistent fashion between buildings. So Lynette and her team have done an incredible amount of work in piloting. We had a stakeholder meeting that Lynette can describe more, but so our presentation is a recommendation of a replacement for that Getting Along Together component.
Yeah, so in student services, I'm a program support within that department. So I work very closely with their school counselors. Last year we adopted a middle school component that is delivered in advisory. And again, this year our elementary team, once we kind of knew maybe we were moving away from Success for All and that Getting Along Together resource, we wanted to start looking at some resources. So the first slide here is just about the school counseling services mandate, giving some background on what we are mandated as a school district to be providing within our school counseling services department. This, a comprehensive school counseling program is what is best practice. And currently the elementary school counseling team pulls from many different resources. And again, the Getting Along Together part of Success for All has been delivered in the classroom by the classroom teachers with support from our student services, our school counselors. And they also utilize resources like Zello, which is a lot about exploring careers. Second Step, which is utilized primarily for the protective behaviors curriculum, which is mandated also by the state. So they've been pulling from many different resources. And then this is some information about a multi-level systems of support, which is work that we're continuing to do, looking at how we comprehensively meet students' needs academically and socially. So we want that good, strong, universal tier, which is commonly referred to as Tier 1. That is our reading curriculum, our math curriculum, all of those things that every student gets at Tier 1. That's part of what we're looking at and talking about today. And then as we move up, you can think of it as a triangle. As we move up that triangle, we see less students needing those supports. So Tier 2 is more like small group support. And when we get up to Tier 3, it's really individualized support. The resource that we're going to present today and recommend really has that comprehensive MLSS structure built into it. And again, we mentioned SFA had that Getting Along Together built in. We've also really seen a lot of positive data coming out of having a intervention team structure that is common actually at our elementaries and our middle schools. And that was something that kind of was solidified by the SFA program, and something that I think we have seen really good outcomes from that we're going to continue with and will be supported by this as well. Just more information again about that Tier 1. So this is universal. It's something that's provided to all students. It's proactively teaching skills, academic and behavioral, social emotional skills. We see our classroom teachers are providing the most support there, and we have support from our specialists. That would be our student services, our dean, interventionist folks. Also, our administrators can provide support, but the majority of Tier 1 is delivered by classroom teachers. And then as we move up to Tier 2, we have a Tier 2A, which is some of those things that are done within the classroom for students who might need more time, like giving more time on a test, or moving a student to a different seating arrangement, things like that, that are just very kind of easily done and naturally done by classroom teachers. And then tier 2B would be those more individualized, targeted resources. That's where we see our specialists starting to get more involved in developing those plans. Students might be going to the intervention team and having some more individualized things being done to help them meet our benchmarks. And then tier 3, that's where we see typically the least amount of students, about 5% of students typically at tier 3. Those are really intensive, individualized supports, one-on-one, and that's really an area for our specialists to get heavily involved. That's where their expertise and high level of training really comes into play. So we had a team that met. Our school counseling team was looking at a multitude of resources. And as we kind of were diving into some of the school counseling resources, we really realized like these are MLSS things that we need to get our teams involved in. So we pulled together our elementary principals, our interventionists, and our school counselors, and met together to look at all the different resources. We did a presentation, had time to kind of look through things. Folks were identifying what their priorities were. We were looking at making sure that what we were going to choose was aligned with our district mission goals and also the school counseling standards. We wanted to have something that was comprehensive and was able to have that differentiation built in. Again, looking at those different tiers of support within an MLSS, and also that it was well organized and we were able to implement it easily and had some things built into it that made it well organized and implemented easily. So the resource that we're recommending is Character Strong. This is a research-backed curriculum. It has a lot of really great things built into it. Like I mentioned, it has those 3 tiers within the MLSS. So this first slide is a lot about just some of the reasons that we recommended this. It was a universal recommendation from all 6 of our elementary school teams when we met together. There's instruction for every student. It teaches and reinforces character traits. You can see here, there's a structure for each month, that there's a theme across the school that all lessons are reinforced around. There's also some really great things that go home to families. There's staff pursuits, so that staff are being asked to reinforce those and model those behaviors and skills within the school as a whole. And it's aligned with the Wisconsin SEL competencies, with our school counselor association, mindsets and behaviors, and it's also highly rated by CASEL, which we looked at. That was something that was across the board. A lot of most of the programs that we looked at had all of those things.
What is CASEL?
It's a organization. I can't remember exactly what CASEL stands for. It's an organization that looks at SEL programs and it looks at all the different things out there, looks at the components and gives them a rating based on are they meeting all of those standards? Are they meeting the national standards? Are they meeting the school counseling standards? They do research studies and look at the outcomes. Yeah, so it received the highest rating by CASEL. I've mentioned a little bit about tier 1. This is talking about tier 2. Again, moving up that ladder of services. So they have that built in. They have a lot of training built in to help support our teams, our intervention teams, and those specialists that are really starting to get more heavily involved as we look at students who are needing that extra level of support. They have kind of like a 2-lane approach where they look at, is this a performance-based need where a student really needs extra instruction to learn a skill that they're missing? Or is it an acquisition-based need where they have learned it, but they're maybe not showing it in every situation? So what's really going on for that student, rather than just saying, we're gonna have every student start with this intervention? They're really looking at trying to identify what the student's need is. There are attendance supports. There's a screening tool built in. It has progress monitoring built in as well, which is something that is required as we're looking at supports. There are monthly professional development and also coaching access built in. So they provide all of that. We would be having a coach assigned to our buildings to help support our teams as we move through all of these different tiers. And there's also a library of on-demand training and resources as well. So it's very comprehensive, actually kind of overwhelming when you look at all the things that are in tier 2 and tier 3. There's quite a bit there.
And Lynette previously came to us from Stevens Point and is still connected with a number of members from their student services team, and they're in year 2 of implementation of Character Strong?
This is their first year.
First year of actual and piloted last year. So we had an opportunity for our team to talk with them about how things have been going in implementation. They gave some great tips and are really loving the results of the program and the positive student outcomes.
Yes, and I would echo that. We work with CISA 7 through some of our MLSS work just across the district. Katie Tennyson is kind of their MLSS expert. She comes into the district and provides support to us, and I've been working a lot with her. And she recommended some of the different things that she knows nearby districts are utilizing, and those were the things that we looked at. And I've talked with multiple districts that are utilizing this resource. Stevens Point, because I have personal connections there. Many of the districts around us are utilizing this as well. So we have a lot of opportunity to make connections with people and talk about, what are you doing and what are you seeing? The Stevens Point is utilizing this K-12, all 3 tiers. So they're diving in a little bit more than what we're recommending currently. But like Katie said, they've had pretty universal positive feedback so far. Character Strong also has tier 3, which is, again, that top of the triangle, really individualized resources and intervention plans. So that's where we really look at diving deeper into trying to identify what's the function of what the student is struggling with and what we're seeing, and really trying to develop that individualized plan for the student to address what we hypothesize the function is. Bringing in families, bringing in all the people who are involved. Sometimes that involves with, bringing in our community resources and partnerships. So they have all of those things within Character Strong, which is something that when we looked at other programs, they just didn't have. It's a very unique program in that way. Many of the other programs focus heavily on that universal tier, which is so important to build that strong foundation, but then they don't have much above and beyond that. It's just kind of piecemealing and picking things from other resources, which we've done. But that was a unique part and one of the strengths that I think the teams really, really were seeing as positives.
And I think as we're really continuing to focus on proactive positive supports for behaviors, as a conversation in our district and a goal to improve that. This really allows our teams to dig deeper and very much have tools at their fingertips to dive in for individualized targeted support, which we haven't necessarily had some of those resources at our fingertips in the past. So something to be able to say, here are tools and resources that we have.
And again, really looking to continue with what we've seen in our elementary classrooms with our teachers delivering the Getting Along Together curriculum. We would propose that our teachers would be delivering the majority of that universal instruction as well. There's many different parts and pieces that our specialists can support. And then also our specialists come in again at that tier 2 and tier 3 level with really heavy supporting there. So this is just talking more about that implementation and the support that is available from Character Strong. There's consultation and coaching from them, on-demand professional development and webinars. Because I've been connected with them, I get emails already from them about things like every week they have something that's going on, and they're sending out updates on things as they're updating all their materials. They have resources for absenteeism. They have a behavior response protocol. They have a video library. There's parent newsletters that are already ready-made. Everything's translated into Spanish for our families who might need that, or our students who might need that. And again, we love that there's staff pursuits. Some of our schools piloted some of these materials just to kind of look at them. And they were doing some lessons in classrooms, and they were already seeing that like teachers and kids were singing some of the songs that were going along with some of the things. So they were kind of seeing things already sticking and liking some of those things. So then as we look at funding, that's the sheet that you were handed is the proposal that I got from Character Strong. And we would be looking at how to fund that. We do have CCEIS funds, which comes out of DPI. Those are set aside funds. That we could fund the majority of this over time. There are also school-based mental health funds that we get as a district. So it'd be looking at, a combination of probably those two things. The quote that you have and see in front of you is a quote for our elementary school buildings. So it's a quote for 5 years. So that you'll see an initial quote for the first year for 6 buildings. And this is kind of like their all encompassing package. When I met with their representative yesterday to go through things, she did say, no, there are things that you can take in and take out. There's lots of professional development and coaching built into it, but I think that's a strength of this, because we have then someone that is able to troubleshoot with our teams, talk with our people who are doing the work. And if we're having some struggle, they can help us work through that. I think that we've seen some of those positives from having coaches available through SFA. I think that would be a strength here. And then you'll also see that there's then multiple years, 4 years of renewals built in for our elementary schools. So that's what you'll see there. There's a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 also built into this quote. So we would be proposing that we would purchase or buy into a multi-year contract for all 3 tiers. So we would focus the beginning of the year, making sure we have that good implementation at the universal level, training all of our folks at the elementary level, and then we would start working on scaling up to tier 2 and tier 3 as we know that we have that good universal base really built for all of our buildings.
I think it's important to note too, when we're looking at these multi-year contracts for curriculum, because they're large numbers, right? That we look at this number and we do the math. So we divide this number by 5, which is the year, and then we divide that by 6, which is our elementary school. And when you do that, it's about $6,000 a year per school. Right. Yeah.
Right, you'll see there are numbers there and then there's minuses underneath because there are discounts that we get for buying into things, for having renewals, for doing multi-year contracts. So that's what you see.
So I just have a few questions. You said last year a middle school program was purchased?
Yes.
Because SFA didn't have a middle school component?
Right, so the middle school recommended School Connect as their component that they're delivering during advisory because there was not that social emotional component built into SFA at the middle school level, like they have getting along together in elementary.
So how does this program mesh with the program we have in the middle school?
Yeah, that getting School Connect is also highly rated by CASEL. It meets all of the school counselor standards. It's not the same. It looks a little bit different. They do have in Character Strong components that scale all the way up through 12th grade. I think that's something that we could look at and think about. I think the middle school has bought into multi-year contract with School Connect. And they're already kind of planning for next year to continue with that model and advisory. I don't think that School Connect has those tier 2 and tier 3 resources. It is something when you meet with Character Strong, of course, they're trying to make a sale. But they said some schools will buy into tier 2 and tier 3, even if they don't have tier 1. So that is an option that we could think about and explore. Or if there are other buildings that wanted to kind of pilot and look at things. I haven't looked extensively at the middle or high school resources because we were focusing at elementary school, so I can't, speak to what those resources look like extensively.
And my last question is, how is it presented to the kids? How much, is there a daily amount of time used for this, or how are lessons done?
Yeah, so this is a full digital curriculum. Others that we looked at had a combination. So there are many different implementation models that they recommend. There's a main component to every weekly lesson, which is about 20 minutes. And then there are things that support that. So depending on what you have available in your schedule, that's where that coach and support from Character Strong comes in. They'll look at what we have available and help us build that so that it works within what we have in our schedule. There are, as I was talking with other districts and how they're implementing, for example, my colleagues from Stevens Point, their student services staff are supporting at minimum, I believe, one lesson a month. So that could look like co-teaching, that could look like doing an all fifth grade kickoff. There are many different ways that you can structure this based on the content of that lesson, based on the needs that are popping up as we're, really being cognizant of looking at our data and what's going on with our kids, and just the overall availability of our people to help support. But we have many different models that they recommend, and lots of that is available within their portal for you to look at and kind of look at how you can structure the layout.
Thank you.
A motion and a second, which since there are only two of you.
We need a motion to approve the program.
I don't want to approve.
I'll second.
Hey.
Unless
there's more discussion.
Any more discussion?
The money thing you're comfortable with and the sources?
Yeah, the CCEIS budget is required set aside based on some identifications that we have through some state and federal identifications. So this is a good resource to use those required set aside dollars on.
And I love the fact that there's coaching available because that ensures everybody's using the language similarly across the board,
Right.
which is so important.
Right.
Okay, vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Next up, we have MPSD Pathways to Success, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And that will be Katie Eichman and Stephanie Boncher.
Yes, so I am very fortunate to have had Lynette's support. Thanks, guys, appreciate it. And now Steph's support. Steph has, in a short amount of time, been tasked in her role as the administrator at the Stengel Learning Community to, kind of dissolve the charter and revision what programming at the Stengel building looks like. And she has just done an incredible job of getting not only stakeholder feedback from the teachers in her building, but from existing McKinley Academy board members and getting input from community members about the needs for alternative programming in the MPSD. And so this vision is really, how are we addressing the very unique needs that we have in our community and taking a look at, opportunities for students to create various pathways, regardless of what that could be. So Steph has just done an incredible amount of work to share some great, exciting information with you. And I want to, I'm gonna disconnect here and then I will have you Windows K your, you may have shown me how to do that. Yep. And Brady's back there if I screw up. How do I I need to disconnect?
I think you can get the Windows K on yours, and then that should bring up the disconnection menu.
Okay. Thanks, Brady.
No problem.
All right, now if you hit your Windows K, this then it should come up.
While they're doing that, I just noticed on here, this is information and discussion. I actually would like action from the board that they support this programming, because that would do two things. One, there are some curriculum things involved here that I think the board should approve. And then the second piece is, since the charter's going away, the alternative programming is a board-approved alternative school that I believe should have action. So I don't know if that's what they were looking for, but in the end of this, when, you know, if you're amiable, I would feel most comfortable if the board would approve this vision for the building.
I would agree, and we didn't know if it would be something that the full board would
Yeah.
want to, okay,
But from here, you know,
Yes.
we'll pass it on.
Yeah,
Great.
full board.
great.
Let's try again.
Okay, 496, 4519. It's not liking this right
You
now.
know, I was just thinking of putting.
You wanna share with me and I can try to connect, or?
See,
Oh, it's just on the agenda?
It's linked to the
Oh,
agenda.
I can do it.
Okay, okay. It's that flow chart.
Okay,
So-
yeah,
Yep.
okay. Great, thank you.
There you go. Now it's up there.
Right now, basically at Single, we have a bunch of programs. It's not just McKinley, but I think it gets confused. So what I did was kind of make structure to the programs and systems, so people end up in what they need as well. So in that first column, this is kind of what we do at McKinley already. And it's also taking the Revive program and merging them in with the current students that we have at McKinley.
And just to clarify, the Revive program are students who are placed off-site as a result of disciplinary issues. So that can be anywhere from a 45-day temporary placement because of some significant building disruptions, or it can be students who are on an abeyance agreement. Abeyance agreements are made in lieu of expulsion for potentially expellable disciplinary issues, and then sometimes those students can stay for a full school year or beyond, depending on the terms of that agreement or the severity of the discipline.
So, the abeyance, we'd have a different teacher working with them, but the Revive for some of the kids that get like on a break because of getting caught like vaping too many times or something, we'll just put them in with the regular, but we have built-in academic core times for 9th and 10th grade, and then 11 and 12, where they would also get credit recovery, character education, and some 9th and 10th will get academic study skills, and then 11th and 12th will get career skills and with that. So if they're in the Revive program, they would have to take one of those labs, and we'd have the Tracy Manchesky doing those. And then we're also gonna add, even though we got rid of it, virtual option and a credit recovery option for seniors. The credit recovery is to hit those seniors who we have programming, which is our JITO program, which you'll see over on the screen as well. But they have to have a certain Lexile and all this criteria to make it in that program. And if somebody hasn't had a lot of math, it can be really hard to pass that GED test in math. So we have, this is another option that we have, which we have been doing this year, piloting it, and it's been going pretty good. We incorporate work skills and community skills and project-based learning in with that as well.
Some rationale in regard to bringing back a virtual option for students. If you want to leave,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, so when we disbanded the charter, with that, we disbanded our virtual school in the charter. One of the reasons we did that is that our enrollment was only 20 some odd students, and we have a lot of staffing for it. One of the reasons that I think in hindsight why that one was tough to sell was that it was a virtual program where the student had a regular schedule, just like they would go to school. They would get on a meet with the teacher at 8 o'clock, and then they would do that all day. Most people who are looking for virtual school are looking for it with flexibility.
Asynchronous.
In asynchronous, and that they can do it when they have time, they have to stay on task. What we also discovered is that there's currently approximately 80 students who open enroll out of our district to places like McFarland and Appleton and these other virtual schools. And, we have goals about getting more of our families back. And if there's a real need for this, several things. One is, this is gonna come at no additional cost. We already subscribe to Edgenuity, which is our platform for online learning. We made a change this year from Apex to this. The platform, as far as teaching and learning goes, is much more engaging and more instructional friendly to the students, and we've seen more success with that. And then the second piece on this is we can provide support for kids in their own backyard, as opposed to them, trying to get support from miles and miles away. So the plan would be is if the board approves this package, I guess, is that I would be planning on sending letters to those 80 students and their families, letting them know that we have this option now available here in Manitowoc, with hopes that they essentially revoke their school choice to these other schools and come, or open enrollment to these other districts, and come back to Manitowoc. That could have a positive impact on our state aid. Even if we had a half of those students back, it's a significant amount. And then in terms of staffing, we have existing staff at McKinley that are going to absorb this program at the start of it at least. And of course, obviously, if we add a bunch of kids, then you have to look at adding staff. But for right now, we're very comfortable with where we're at. So this is a possibility of getting some kids back in the district, and we're excited about that.
So there's an option that if, I hate using the word Johnny because Johnny's always,
Johnny's always the one, isn't
It's always Johnny.
but there's an option if Johnny is in this program and he needs that human touch.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually built this in. The staff has been working amazing and using all the staff and their expertise, and instead of just having one in each category, they're juggling. But we have a teacher assistant, plus the teacher has built in office hours instead of prep, that he'll meet one-on-one with the students and help them as well. So we kind of built that in.
Right.
That's great because the relationship is a huge
And then
catalyst.
throughout the semester, once a month, we have students, we have a community day with them, or we have special things that we do. And then the virtual kids would be invited to that as well.
Sometimes we may, if this is an option that's good for a period of time for kids, having this connection continued with our district may afford them the opportunity to transition to a different program that's more in person, depending on, how their needs would change. So it keeps them connected to us too, which I think is really great.
In addition, I would plan on sending communication to our county schools that we have this option. My guess is similar to our programming at the high school. Every once in a while, you get somebody coming in and asking about this option, right? So the goal would be to let those know, because that could be open enrollment as a result of being able to offer this programming in our district.
I'm getting calls from Green Bay because
Yeah.
I'm in away with their virtual. The key to all these programs, I just want to add though, is that we started forming a team that will meet monthly to kind of stay on top of, talk about what adjustments need to be made. Because I think that's kind of been what's happened in the past, it's just gotten forgot about and not looked at again. So that's going to be a key part of this.
Like
So
an
should-
advisory committee,
Yeah.
as the board, will now no longer be a board.
Yeah, and some of them will stay on as well too, so. So second column is the McKinley, or we can always do a name change at any time too. With the charter, if we get rid of everything, the school code, then we might have to pay back federal funds. So, I thought we could just put the school code under the recovery. That's what I got the planning grant for. And this would be mainly for, because we had these advanced kids, a number of kids this year who have gotten up for expulsion because of substance abuse or other things. So with this grant, and then we go for another grant at the end of June, which would be at the minimum 100,000.
So it's we'll get more into this, but
Yeah.
there's a consortium, the National Consortium of Recovery High Schools that are specifically working with schools and community partners to provide recovery and AODA counseling and supports as part of school programming. So kids who are engaging in, frequent incidents of like substance abuse on school property or thing, you know, instead of suspending and fining, which are sort of our options right now, we'll have the ability to provide supports and services to students that those patterns of behavior are really impeding their ability to be successful. So like Steph said, the McKinley part, if we call it McKinley Recovery High School, then we're just shifting what that school code is, moving from a charter to more of a specialized alternative program, so that the students in this program, because sort of the connotation within already, or the perception of McKinley is that it's not necessarily, you know, a pathway for, you know, a different diploma pathway. It's sort of like, that's where kids go who are struggling, right? And so we want to sort of provide opportunities for independent programming that's, you know, like more of a connection to Lincoln that's alternative, that doesn't necessarily have that connotation about the kids who are struggling as part of McKinley, because we know that's not the case. But then we'll just we'll call it McKinley Recovery so that legally we're not paying money back to the state for things.
So, and the big thing too with those, the flexible education programming, whatever we decide to call it, is that those kids, it's been a huge barrier with that Lincoln graduation. Now we'll be part of the other schools, so that barrier will be gone.
So kids they will be Lincoln kids, but attending programming, unique programming tailored to them, but still can go to our dances, still march in the bowl for graduation. So something where kids were maybe reluctant to participate in an environment that wasn't most conducive to their needs because they didn't want to give up some of the things that being part of Lincoln entail. They get to be part of Lincoln, which is pretty cool.
And we know middle school needs some sort of programming, but we just started with 8th grade. Cause that's been a struggle this year, and that's perfect time for transition to high school. So we built 8 through 12 instead of 9 through 12. So yeah, the recovery, basically, we'll talk about it later, but this is kids that we already have. It's just now with this money, we have resources to actually help them better succeed in school. And these are kids that also, in the advanced program I have now, we have the surrounding districts, they come to it. So we're gonna offer community luncheon, and hopefully then we can get some dollars from the other districts for taking their kids anyway.
Yeah, so there's two parts to the recovery program that we'll get into, but there's a planning grant, which we have to spend now.
Yeah.
And then once we have the plan and that portion of this recovery high school and program building, then we have an implementation grant that will, like Steph said, a minimum of $100,000 so that we can build these community partnerships. So the plan is, there's a couple of teams already going to look at one of the closest recovery high schools to us is in St. Paul, Minnesota. So they're gonna go check that out in 2 weeks, called the Peace Academy. And then so we're working on planning that, but we're going to have a community agency luncheon, human services, all of our mental health support providers, addiction and recovery support providers come in to learn about the recovery grant, and then have really a consortium about how they can support students. And then, you know, obviously we have dollars to be able to fund that partnership. And then a separate meeting after that community partner consortium will be of the 6 schools that make up Manitowoc County to say, we know you're all struggling with some of these things, so how can we work together? We'll offer programming, and what can our agreement be that your students, based on, you know, whatever we figure out, a per pupil based on, you know, seat space availability could be, so that our community county school districts would have opportunities to send students to participate in this program, which, you know, could be really great for our county at large, for our kids.
So
Sorry.
So yeah, that's okay. I know it's exciting, so I want to keep talking to you. The last column is what we already have. That's the GED option 2, which Kristen Lee does out at the UW. And then there's the community U, which is at Clark Bridge. So you had to throw them on there too. And then we have one more program in the Stingle building, which is a elementary middle special education behavioral program.
Out of curiosity, how long I've heard of recovery high schools or recovery schools before, but how long has that sort of been a thing, and what is the record of recidivism after involvement in a program like that?
Great question. Those are, I think we're gonna learn that,
As you get
as
further.
so there's a national conference coming up that is one of the requirements of the planning grant is that you attend this national conference. So I think we'll learn all of that information. The St. Paul School's been around for a while.
For like over 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
It was one of the first ones, and there's,
Uh-huh.
yeah. It's that even in Madison, the family that started, the guy was talking to him, and there's kids that would have never made it through high school who are flourishing now. I think some of them work a lot with rawhide and stuff too.
So when this came about, Wisconsin Public Radio reached out to talk. And so they had a little segment on two schools, ours, which was new, and then they had an existing school, which we've also connected with.
Up
it-
north,
Yep.
What is it?
up north
Something
somewhere.
like that,
Yes.
yeah.
And what I learned, and I even said it on the air, like I'm learning a lot just listening to her answer these questions about what this could be. And they had a similar vision, which is involving the community and getting the kids out in the community working with our partners to give them those experiences and in a lot of cases confidence and efficacy around what they can do and accomplish. And so not only classroom-based learning, but also out in the community-based learning.
And we have a population in the community that is excited to be helping with us. I've met with several different groups that are, so I'm sure you're already connected with them.
Very
Yeah.
excited.
Right now, the kids are young and kids try stuff, and getting expelled to your 21 is just setting them up like horribly. So
Mhm.
at least this, we can help them when they're young and
Right.
to learn the skills.
And
So
meeting the individual where they're at without judgment, and
Yep.
here's what we're gonna do to help you
In
from
a
where you are.
community classroom setting where people are dealing with the same struggles and everybody has a unique unique supports that are tailored to them and what their needs are.
In a small
Yes.
structured environment.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's
That's-
MPSD alternative pathways to success in a nutshell. As we come to the end of our McKinley Academy chapter, our school chapter.
I look for a motion to approve the plan.
Yeah, I would say approve the
presented.
ESD pathways.
A motion to approve the pathway,
There you go.
alternative pathway plan.
Second, any further discussion? Any discussion? I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried.
Thanks for your work, Stephanie and Pete.
Is there anything linked to Recovery High School? No? It's just more,
No, that was just on there. There was no other hand.
okay, good, good. Any other questions about the Recovery High School? So again, we'll have planning, there's some travel involved in that. We're gonna host these sessions, we'll use some of that planning grant dollars to host these sessions with the two people. We'll come back and report on all of that at the end of June, probably beginning of July. We'll report on it after we've been there and then ready to submit our proposal for the actual implementation.
Right.
So it's gonna be related to Lincoln, correct?
Mhm.
So I need a word B that has to do with education, because you could call it ABE. Alternative, not education.
Oh.
Well, no, I told these two that through the DPI Wisconsin last year, they're really promoting innovative schools of innovation,
Okay,
which gives a lot of leniency. It's kind of, they prefer it over at risk.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I haven't looked at the literature, but I was like,
Yeah,
that sounds pretty fancy.
It does sound very nice.
Uh-huh.
Like it. I'll be
Something
thinking.
with
thinking coming up
innovation.
with a B. Yeah.
With the B, something.
Abe Innovation.
There you go.
Well, think of something and then let us know, or tell Kristen when you start.
Contest with the kids.
I have a ton of names that came out.
We did Chat GPT, so thanks.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Steph. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Okay, so now it looks like we have a bunch of out-of-state travel requests. We can run those as one slate. We don't need to talk about them individually, do we?
Unless anybody has questions, all the stuff is attached. You'll see there's some trips for student organizations. We have FCCLA, nationals in Washington. We also have a national one for Wilson out of FCCLA, and Lincoln and Washington. So those are three of them. We have an FBLA National Leadership Conference that a number of our students at Lincoln, that program has been revived in a very positive manner. An orchestra trip to Six Flags, an Association of Recovery Schools Conference, as Katie mentioned, to basically fulfill obligation in our grant and get trained in the areas that we need to successfully run that. And then the visit of the recovery school to the Peace Academy in St. Paul.
Okay, can I just ask how long FCCLA has been in the middle schools? I know we had it.
Well, I think it's been growing to the point where students are excelling just really recently.
Yeah, oh yeah, we haven't seen any of their travel in quite a while.
Yeah.
That I'm,
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always believed these types of opportunities are huge for kids. I mean, they have a vision of what's out there, but it's all from this.
yeah.
When you actually see something like that, it's
Yeah.
way different. It's
Yeah.
impactful. I think this is excellent.
Best way to send these to the board, do you want to send them as a group or individually?
We will put them on consent, and if anybody has questions, I'll pull them. That's what we typically do with staff, or any out-of-state travel anyway.
Okay.
I would move to approve all of the requests for travel.
I would second it. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I forgot discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion is
Get the
carried.
hang of this. Next.
Is adjournment time.
Yeah.
Oh.
And just so you're aware, and I explained it at the last meeting, because the committees are small on the school board, 3 and the school board is 7. There's always a chance a defeated motion, even 0-3, somebody on the board could bring forward and want to try to pass it. So I probably didn't write this correctly in the email, but my thought is that if anything gets defeated, we should just put it on the consent agenda.
So someone,
And
yeah.
that way somebody can pull it if they want to talk about it, or, you know, that way it could still get discussion by one of those 4 other people that don't serve on it.
Yeah.
So
That makes,
that
the
would
way
be
you wrote
as
it
if-
made sense.
Okay, and then that way you don't have to introduce each of those at a board meeting because it'd be on consent. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, just so you're aware of that, and I'll talk to Ann because I think Chris knows, but Ann is the only one I haven't seen yet, so.
Thursday, she's on finance and facility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that meeting is Thursday, and then, just for, well, really. you're
This we're
the-
moving to 4:30 from
4:30.
now on.
We
Okay.
typically, our policy and personnel committee's business typically is done in an hour. If we would ever anticipate that it wouldn't be, we could extend it another 30 minutes, but just to, I mean, you're sitting here for a half hour otherwise, so
Yeah.
we just can be more efficient, I think, if we started at 4:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
That being said, I looking to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thanks, Sal.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.